backpack over first. Okay. So I'll hold it. Okay, crawl through. I'm gonna go through the other side. Huh. Okay, you're in. Good job. When I was little, this whole area was just natural prairie, but somebody's cultivated. You see the strip there? Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah?
Do you ever want to go back, like, how it was? Like, before the settlers came?
I'm not sure.
I am Cree, and I was raised by a homesteading family in southern Saskatchewan. I was adopted, one of many Indigenous children raised away from our culture. This is my grandpa. He is the constant man in my life. He's very proud of me and my documentaries, even when he doesn't understand what it is I actually do.
Oh, Tasha. It probably won't even grow. I think it's gonna grow fine.
That's good.
I'm lucky because my grandpa always makes us feel that we're part of his family. When I was a kid, I was confused about my identity. My adoptive parents wanted me to know who I was. When I was 16, they helped me find my birth parents.
Yeah, go ahead. Put them in here.
I try to make things different for my son. He's growing up knowing all of his relations across the prairies.
Very good chocolate function.
The prairies have a complicated history, and Indigenous people are often at the receiving end of racism. My son and my nephew have been taught to not accept it, to not internalize it, even when we feel it every day. Our motto is "This is our territory. We belong here," even if people try to make us think we don't. The boys and I were traveling in the summer of 2016 when I found out a young Cree man named Colton Bushie was shot and killed by a farmer. The suddenness of his death stunned me. Our Cree beliefs tell us that our children don't belong to us. They belong to themselves. But we are responsible for keeping them safe. I always thought I could teach the boys how to protect themselves as they grow into men. Colton's death made me realize I was wrong. Colton's family tell me he was a kind young man who loved horses. He cut firewood for elders and helped out at ceremonies.
Could have shot the gun in the air and told them, get out of the car, You guys are going to sit on the side of the road while the RCMP are on their way. But he took it upon himself to justice. He figured, oh, you know, they're on my land. Without considering a life or anything, just go out there and just start shooting his gun at people, walk right up behind my son and shoot him in the back of the head. A mother does not deserve their children to go before them.
On that summer day, Colton's girlfriend, her cousin, and 2 other friends picked Colton up. They drank, swam, and then headed home. Colton was sleeping in the back of the SUV. The other 2 young men stopped at a farm and tried to break into a truck by hitting the door with a .22 rifle. The rifle breaks and they put it in the back seat of their vehicle. The SUV the young people were driving had 1 tire on the rim. Gerald Stanley was known for fixing cars, and his farm was close by. The young men drove into his yard. One got out and jumped on a parked quad. Gerald and his son Sheldon were in the yard and started yelling. The young man got back into the vehicle and they attempted to drive away. Sheldon smashed their windshield with a hammer and Gerald kicked their taillight, then ran to get a gun. Driving on the rim and unable to see, the driver ran into a parked SUV and came to a stop. The 2 young men exited the vehicle and ran. Stanley fired 2 shots. Colton woke up and jumped into the front seat. A few seconds later, Colton was dead from a close-range shot to the head. Colton's girlfriend and her friend would later testify that Gerald's wife Lisa said, "That's what you get for trespassing." The next day, the RCMP issue a press release, but Colton's death or Stanley's actions aren't the focus. Instead, the RCMP say that Colton's friends entered private property, are suspected of theft, and that someone died as a result. The response is swift. Numerous online comments are made about the shooting. Many are posted on a farmer's Facebook group that eventually closes. Comments are also posted on a different group called Farmers with Firearms. Some are from people living in towns and cities.
So as we were driving back to Red Pheasant from Saskatoon is when I went on my Facebook and my cousins let me know, like he was shot. They had a flat tire and he was shot, and I was like, okay, like who shot him? Where did this happen? I had all these questions, but they didn't have the details. But when I went on Facebook and I seen all these comments by people about thieving Indians getting what they deserved, don't go on people's property if you don't want to get shot, we work hard for our stuff and you're gonna come and steal it, I'd shoot you too, and reading all these comments, and I'm like messaging or commenting back as fast as my fingers will type, and at one point I just grabbed my phone and I threw it at the windshield because we're driving, and my husband was like, don't go on there anymore. Don't read that stuff. I said, well, they're saying the most hateful stuff and they don't know what happened.
Gerald Stanley is charged with second-degree murder 2 days after Colton's death. Stanley's first court appearance is in North Battleford at the provincial courthouse, and he will be moved to Battleford for his bail hearing. There is a significant RCMP presence. Several reporters tell me this is not usual.
loss in this man's eyes or his family's, for a lost baby. Although there is a lot of anger, a lot of grief, the legal system will do its part in terms of the RCMP investigation as well as the court process. We need to have confidence in that moving forward, and hopefully that justice will be served.
Murder! Stanley's family is escorted to the RCMP headquarters. None of the media get an image of Stanley himself.
Non-Aboriginal people, I want to thank you also for your support also. We must stop racism. Racism is hatred. Cannot continue this. We cannot hand this down generation to generation.
At the bail hearing, it comes out that Stanley used a restricted handgun to shoot Colton, and that there were 12 guns found on his property. Eventually, Stanley is released on $10,000 bail. Red pheasant, sweetgrass, little pine, and poundmaker are some of the surrounding First Nations in the Battlefords, named after the chiefs who negotiated Treaty 6 with the Crown. Stanley's farm is just a few miles away from Red Pheasant, where Colton was from. This is a conflicted territory, and Stanley's actions have exposed long-standing wounds. My first film job was doing background casting on a CBC miniseries about Cree Chief Big Bear. I cast my birth father as a chief at the time of treaty. My uncle played Chief Big Bear. That film changed things for me as a young woman. I started to learn about my history as a Cree person, especially what happened because of colonialism. It is a heartbreaking history. I want my son to know all that was done to ensure his generation's survival. The buffalo always sustained us. The newcomers saw this. When they started killing them off, we started to die from hunger. Our leaders realized we had to find a new way to live. They came together at Fort Carlton and Fort Pitt in 1876 to meet the Crown's representatives. They negotiated our future through Treaty 6, a nation-to-nation agreement. Our people were told that the newly arrived Northwest Mounted Police were there to protect us. Livelihood, education, health care, hunting rights, and more were all promised in exchange for sharing the land to the depth of a plow. We were told we kept our freedom, and because the treaties were done through our traditional ceremonies, most believed the promises made by the Crown. No one knew the Government of Canada was preparing the Indian Act at the same time, which said Canada could dictate our lives. No one knew the Northwest Mounted Police was there to push us onto reserves. No one knew the written document said we surrendered the land. Big Bear and a few other leaders wanted to negotiate a better deal. Government representatives, like Indian Affairs Commissioner Edgar Dewdney and his assistant Hayter Reed, wanted them all to move away from the coming railway, so they used hunger as a weapon against anyone trying to resist. Big Bear tried to choose a reserve near Little Pine and Poundmaker, but it was not approved. He and his people were sent to Frog Lake, Alberta, the government brought in an Indian agent named Thomas Quinn, who had a reputation for cruelty. He continually refused rations to the starving people. Another man, John Delaney, forced the women to trade their bodies for food for their hungry children. On April 2, 1885, the Cree warriors, led by Wandering Spirit, finally pushed back with force, killing 9 men they knew as their oppressors, including Thomas Quinn. The reserves in the Battleford area were also kept hungry. A group of leaders and warriors went to Fort Battleford to meet with their Indian agent to ask for food. The people of the town of Battleford got scared and barricaded themselves into the fort. When the Cree and Nakota arrived, the Indian agent refused to come out, and so some of the hungry people took what they needed in the deserted town. The government was already sending troops north from Swift Current to find and punish Big Bear and his warrior chief Wandering Spirit. One troop's leader, Colonel William Otter, decided on his own to attack Poundmaker's camp. Poundmaker went to Little Pine and Sweetgrass, requesting the warriors come to his camp. He felt that a large number of worthy men would convince Otter to turn back. Otter attacked before dawn. He fired into the Cree camp without negotiating. But the warriors protected the people and defeated Otter's troops. Eventually, Big Bear, Poundmaker, and Wandering Spirit turned themselves in to ensure safety for their people. Big Bear and Poundmaker were sent to Stony Mountain Prison. On November 2nd, 1885, 8 warriors, including Wandering Spirit, were tried without legal representation and sentenced to death. The government brought people in from nearby reserves to witness the hanging. Children from the residential school in Battleford were also forced to watch, to be taught what happens if they stood up for themselves.
I thought that was a real guy for a second. Handcuffs.
Handcuffs and leg irons. So that's kind of interesting when they talk about the government attracted settlers by offering free land, discounted sea passages, and reduced rail fares. And then look, the Northwest Mounted Police was transformed to meet the needs of the new communities. Okay, so this one, the first one we're gonna look at is from North Battleford. It's this one here, Battleford 1887 to 1891. So 4 Cree squaws from the 5th to the 12th November.
What does it mean, squaws?
Well, that's what they used to call
1880.
the Squaywalk, what they used to call women. But it's a derogatory term now, especially. Okay. This one's from Fort Walsh. Cold, very cold day, cold windy day. Council held this afternoon with Indians. Big Bear signed treaty at 5 p.m.
That's
I don't know.
pretty cool.
Yeah. He was pretty reluctant, actually, but his family were starving. His grandchild died.
Oh.
His granddaughter. One of the things that Bishop always said is that we're here because the people who came before us loved us so much. Right? That's how come we're still here. Because those who came before did whatever they could so that you guys would be here and that your kids would be here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really hard. Hey, it's been really hard.
Yeah.
Our people have had a hard time. And those hard times aren't done yet. But we want things to be better for you guys.
It would wipe your tears, brother.
I know, right? It's okay. It's a thought that counts.
The night it happened, we had dinner. He didn't show up. I put his food in the microwave. Then I looked out the window and I saw a big line of cars coming. And I looked out there and I told the boys, I said, look, there's something going on. Look at all these vehicles coming. Next thing you know, we were surrounded by cops. They drew their guns, surrounded the trailer. And I asked them what's going on. And they said, are you Debbie Baptiste? And I said, yes. And I said, what's Colton Bushie to you? And I said, my son. And they said, your son's deceased.
I woke up my brother Jace, and when I did that, that's when all the cops, when I turned around and ran to the back room to tell my older brother that they're saying our little brother's dead, they all swarmed the house. They came inside, went room to room, closet to closet.
And I started screaming. I was holding my hands, and he held me back, put my hands, and he said, get yourself together. And then while he was shaking me and telling me that, he was smelling my breath. And I was like, what did I do? Why are you guys doing this to me? What did I do? But sitting home waiting for my son to come home, and his dinner was in the microwave.
Wrong place, wrong time, sleeping in the backseat of a car. And he had to wake up to that, to his window getting smashed out, to the women freaking out and the boys running from gunshots. I would have did the same thing that he did. I would have jumped in the driver's seat and tried to get those women out of there.
Thousands of children in Treaty 6 were forced to attend residential schools. These are the bones of the residential school near Battleford. Many children from Red Pheasant and other reserves attended. Some never made it home. People are starting to learn about these schools and their terrible legacy, but they don't know about the other ways the Canadian government has oppressed us. The rights outlined in our treaties were ignored and overshadowed through the Canadian government's policies and laws. The Indian Act took away our traditional governance structure and imposed a chief and council system. The Indian Act criminalized our ceremonies, which is a way of criminalizing who we are. Because of what happened in 1885, the government introduced a policy called the pass system. This meant that our ancestors were confined to their reserves unless they had permission from the Indian agent. When our people began to pursue land claims and organize against our own oppression, the government added a section to the Indian Act that stopped us from hiring lawyers. Soon, we were outlawed from gathering in groups of any kind. The RCMP enforced it all, arresting anyone who resisted.
This house is where I grew up, and it's was built around 1920s when our land got sold in Delmas. We were moved here in Thunderchild.
My birth dad is married to Colton's aunt and lives on Red Pheasant. He's originally from Thunderchild First Nation and was one of the first Cree lawyers in Saskatchewan.
Mushroom?
Yeah.
Is there a Cree word for justice?
Justice is an idea or concept where everybody needs to be fair with each other. And it's really strongly related to the word respect. So all the Cree words are intermingled into the idea of respecting each other and to be fair with each other. When a government is not fair with the subjects, or when two parties of an agreement like treaties are not living up to what they agreed to, that's not fair. So then you don't see justice, right? Miwi chehtuan, kasagihta homaski, you're not really giving it up, and people need to understand that. Even the fact that people who don't want to understand that, that's an injustice for us. They have to understand it.
I want to certainly take time to thank the Creator for this beautiful evening, to have us come together here in memory of late Colton Boushie.
It's been a very challenging 3 weeks for my family and I, and we've been getting together quite a lot lately and supporting one another and staying strong the best we can. And we realized that what's happened to my brother Colton not only affects us, but it has affected many people across Turtle Island and around the globe.
Gotta sew all your ribbons down. You don't want to be looking styling and one of your ribbons be falling off. There you go. When you start to feel more comfortable, you could push down a little bit more. It'll sew a little bit faster. I remember when the reporters came out to the wake in Red Pheasant, they wanted to know more about him. Who was he, as a brother? Who was he to you? What are good stories you could share about him? And I was sitting there with my kukum, Verna, and I usually don't talk in front of my kukum. I usually am either listening to her share stories or tell me things. So after that was done, and the camera went off, and he thanked me and he walked out, my kukum turned to me and she's like, "From now on, you're going to talk." Because she never heard me speak before. And so when Kukum tells you to do something, you don't argue.
Yep, then that's what you do.
Yeah, that's what you do. And so I said, okay. We gotta get as many as possible, right? So hundreds of voices are louder than one voice. Yeah.
The family is losing trust in the process, so they hire their own lawyers. They're also worried that racism will affect the trial, so they launch a petition to ask for an out-of-province prosecutor.
I know this is a really difficult day for the family. It's really hard that he's not here with us in person, but together as a family and as a community that we still do something for the day, because if he was here with us, we would have did something today. So if someone would want to share share the story of Coco being born today. If anybody would feel comfortable with sharing that.
And everyone was in their costumes and they were taking pictures, and my mom was a green witch and a pregnant green witch at it.
Pregnant witch.
I remember we were just laughing at her because she looked funny and her stomach was really big, and next day we all went trick-or-treating and everything, and we come home and came to good news that Colton was born. Ever since then, we've always had a big celebration like this. All of us kids would get dressed up and go out trick-or-treating.
Yeah, and that's how Colton was born. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it came out on Halloween. I remember when she brought him home. It was just a tiny baby. I was so happy.
A brown baby.
Yeah, the darkest one out of all of us.
We were cruising down the road and he took a selfie of us. But I carry this with me everywhere. He has all these certificates from way back. He almost went to Washington, D.C., and he's listed as one of the top contenders there. And he didn't make it. But then the year after that, he tried again. When he was a little boy, he was so smart. He had Harry Potter glasses. And he was really into science. And then if somebody was speaking about, you know, something, and he would correct them, and he would say, you know, he'd have these little Harry Potter glasses, and he'd push him up and he'd say, scientifically, I don't think that's right. And then he'd said, when he was a little guy like that too, he said, the world would get along if everybody just get a good book and go sit under a tree.
The family's petition is ignored, and the province stays with their own prosecutor. During the jury selection, both the prosecution and Stanley's defense team have 14 peremptory challenges. They can veto potential jurors without giving any reason why. Despite the racism displayed since Colton's death, no one is asked if they have bias against Indigenous people.
So they said they picked out 7 women and 5 men? Okay. Is there any Native people in that jury? No? Huh. Are you the, look, there's all your toys over there. Yeah, remember all your toys?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it just went quiet. The jury selection, it was like they just pull random numbers. They all the juries have different numbers, and they just randomly pulled like bingo balls. As people started coming in, it was mostly like non-Indigenous, like white people coming through the doors. And all of a sudden, this really tall Native dude, long hair, glasses, walked in, and he looked around, and I thought, cool, like maybe, you know, another Indigenous person. And he walked up to that jury table, like, because they have to check in. And he walked up to check in, and I looked at Lyle, I was like, I'm going to start to cry. Because it, you know, like, it gave me hope that Indigenous people were potential jury members. And immediately, Spencer's like, challenge. So he sat down. There was literally a handful of them, and none of them got through. We just gotta pray that they go into it with an open mind and see the evidence and the truth for themselves.
Yeah. What I always kind of wonder is, you could have shot him in the arm, in the leg, right directly back of the head. execution style. So you can't say it was an accident.
Stanley made a choice. He decided to run after a gun instead of running after a phone.
I think you changed your name.
Yeah.
And that was my...
Been waiting and waiting, so it's finally here. No more wondering. No more wondering, sitting up at night. Wondering why this guy gets to roam around free while the rest of us suffer and cry and miss him. It's always gonna be like this. This is never gonna go away.
The trial will last 2 weeks. The temperature has dropped to the -30s. Camera crews bundle up outside, while reporters crowd into the media room or the courtroom itself. Every day, the story will make headline news. Throughout the trial, the family will feel the pressure of the media spotlight.
Before you go inside, I was wondering if you have any sort of comment to make to the media or anything in regards to the trial as it gets underway today.
Just justice for my son, Colton Bushie. Excuse me.
The Battleford courtroom is small. Gerald Stanley's family sits on one side, and Colton's family sits on the other. There are 2 seats between them, reserved for media to split the 2 families up. The presiding judge is Saskatchewan's Court of Queen's Bench Chief Justice. It's important to remember that the trial is the Crown versus Stanley. Colton's family and their lawyers have no standing or say what happens inside. The Crown prosecutors barely communicate with them. Stanley's defense team includes Scott Spencer and several junior lawyers. A few days earlier, Spencer issued a statement saying the trial is not a referendum on race. The word racism will never be mentioned throughout the proceedings.
I know we are early, but what are your early thoughts, sir, if you feel comfortable?
Well, bottom line, there's no good date in something like this. It's a terrible situation to have to deal with, but it's good to get the evidence starting to flow here. So, to that extent, that's good. But otherwise, we're really early on. So.
Take care. Thank you for the time, Mr. Spencer.
Do you want to say anything, Mr. Stanley?
Mr. Stanley, do you have any remarks?
How do you think it went today?
Bill Burge is the lead prosecutor. He begins by calling members of the RCMP. We learned that the search warrant was delayed and that the vehicle where Colton was killed was left uncovered for over 24 hours. During this time, rain fell on the scene, washing away much of the evidence. The blood spatter expert testifies that she wasn't actually at the scene. She based her conclusions on photos taken by investigators. Burge calls up the 3 Indigenous witnesses who were there that day. No one explains how the witnesses spent over 18 hours in police custody before giving their statements. No one mentions how the RCMP handcuffed and placed the young woman in the back of the car, and took her along on a high-speed chase. Some of her testimony differs from the forensic evidence. Spencer accuses her of not telling the truth. No one accounts for how the trauma she experienced may be affecting her. Despite her being a central witness to Colton's death, the defense damages her credibility. Later, the prosecutor tells the jury he will not rely on her testimony. The two young men heard gunshots as they were running from the scene. They did not witness the shooting. Spencer cross-examines them at length on their activities prior to entering the Stanley farm. Some observers feel like the witnesses are the ones on trial. Spencer shows photos of Colton's body to two of the witnesses, which they find traumatizing. It also goes against Indigenous protocols.
We know that there's been many issues raised in terms of stealing, theft, racism, murder, all of these issues that are playing on a lot of emotions. But, you know, I guess moving forward, we need to have that confidence that the Crown prosecutors are going to be asking the proper questions and doing their due diligence with all the witnesses that are taking the stand. I don't know if we've felt that today, but we're hoping that in the coming days that's what we're going to find that transpires.
But it seemed like it was deliberate that he showed him that photograph with Colton's body in it to get a reaction. Well, it didn't help their case at all.
The defense strategy is that this was an accident. And so my question is, okay, well, if it accidentally went off, then it's going to have to be the defense's theory that it was purely a coincidence, that out of all the billions of places that bullet could have gone, it entered behind Colton's left ear. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, seems a lot harder to believe than a person acting in self-defense.
Stanley's lawyers are eager to build the argument that this was an accident. They say Stanley experienced a hang fire, a delay between pulling the trigger and the bullet firing. It's a rare malfunction, usually caused by defective ammunition. An RCMP gun expert testifies that hang fires can only last a maximum of half a second. For what the defense is arguing, it would have to be much longer between when Stanley pulled the trigger for the third time to when he was next to Colton. Spencer attempts to bring in anonymous posts from online forums that claim longer hang fires exist, but he's turned down by the judge. Spencer then brings in non-expert witnesses who claim to have had longer hang fires. In one case, a man testifies to an experience 40 years ago while hunting gophers. In both cases, they were using different guns and ammunition than Stanley used. Their testimony seems to be given the same weight as the actual gun experts. Spencer builds a case that it's impossible to know why the gun went off. The media will call this a magic gun defense. Spencer also has to explain why the gun was pointed at Colton's head. He invites Stanley to take the stand. One of Colton's supporters is holding up an eagle feather, a symbol of truth. At the request of the jury, the judge tells them to stop. Stanley testifies that he removed the clip and that he walked up to the driver's side of the vehicle Colton was in, and that he tried to take the keys out with his left hand that was holding the clip, and while still holding the gun in his right, which was behind Colton's head. That's when it went off. Stanley is given the gun itself to demonstrate his actions. The family does not know this is going to happen.
To see the man who held that gun and shot him in the back of the head reenact what he did, that was one of the hardest things that I've ever seen. And have to sit there and endure. All we want is justice for Colton.
the grade 7-8. Some of the grade 7-8 class of Neokomatsuan. We're just here to show support.
And right now it's pretty hard to predict where they're going to go with this. You know, it might turn to, they might decide second, manslaughter, acquittal, or a hung jury.
Alvin, would you be satisfied with a manslaughter result instead of second-degree murder?
I thought about that, and I'd really, you know, I just want to get this done and over with, and it's been hanging over my head, my family's head for quite a while, and you know, it's time that my family starts to heal and move on. And you know, as long as Gerald Stanley is charged and be accountable for his actions of taking a young Indigenous man's life.
By now, most observers feel that a murder conviction is unlikely. Manslaughter includes the careless use of a firearm, so this is the verdict people are now expecting. Throughout the trial, I've been thinking about the power of words and the effect they have. Spencer used words like terror, home invasion, and wreaking havoc. He emphasized several times to the jury that the young people were wearing hoodies. Under the law, Spencer couldn't claim Stanley acted in self-defense, but told the jury there's a self-defense factor. He also told the jury Stanley's hardworking, perhaps alluding to the stereotype of Indigenous people as lazy. He admitted he was creating a narrative for the jury. This is a narrative that resonates in this area of Saskatchewan. The judge tells the jury they have three choices: to find Stanley guilty of second-degree murder, manslaughter, or not guilty. The family and their supporters have nothing to do but wait.
How the angle of that bullet went through my nephew. It's almost upwards.
It had to be like this.
Yeah, like this. Then.
Yeah. We did that this morning. We went outside with some reporters, and there was a Ford Escape sitting out there. I think it was Globals. About the same kind that you got that was used in this situation. And yeah, they tried it. You have to reach in over the steering column, and the key is in there, and then you have to turn it because you had to turn it off.
Yeah.
And if you're holding something,
yeah,
it's just about impossible to do that.
Yeah,
Because we were trying it, couldn't do it. Plus, he had the gun in his other hand, which is an unnatural thing, you know.
They treated the witnesses like they were the criminals, that they were the one that shot Colton themselves when it was Gerald Stanley, and yet he was given all this privilege, freedom, walk away on bail. That's white privilege right there again.
Make way to the car.
Just Where's Dad? Hold on, hold on. Hold on. Where's the people?
This isn't justice!
The words "not guilty" hang in the air. I see a jury member smile at Stanley. The sheriffs jump up and rush Stanley and his family out of the courtroom. Most of the jury jumps to their feet and runs after them. A couple of them stay seated, crying. It feels like everything has changed.
People in the courtroom were shocked. Family members were shouting, "You're a murderer, you're a murderer." People were crying. Even Gerald Stanley himself looked surprised. As he stood up, he turned around. His face looked quite startled by what had been announced.
We stand justice for Colton Boushie. I don't know what society is, but I guess you can shoot people in the back of the head and get away with it. And this ain't right, this ain't justice. And the law system failed my family in this murder trial. Thank you, that's all.
We will fight for an appeal and answers to all the racism that my family has experienced from the day that Colton was shot until the jury delivered the verdict of not guilty. We will not stop our pursuit for justice. We will stand here and honor my late brother, my family member, my friend, Colton Bushie.
Several trucks circle the courthouse, revving their engines. When I ask the crew to film them, one starts to record us as well.
They're raising tobacco and allowing the elder to say a few words, so please just give us a couple of moments. They will come and speak with you guys shortly. Thank you very much.
I don't want my grandkids to see this day that we have suffered, or any other families that suffered. My heart cries today.
All he ever focused was how much the kids drank. How far was the drive from Red Pheasant to Maymont? Who all took a swim? Who cares? A young boy got killed. A young boy got killed, point blank. And all we can say is, boom, the thing just went off. How stupid is that?
Justice crumbled today. And I feel so heartbroken to the family. I just can't believe it, what happened this evening. I can't say no more. I'm so lost with words.
This verdict, this acquittal, it sends the message that it's open season on Indigenous people. But it's not. It's not. The whole process has been stacked against this family from the beginning.
Through the last year and a half, there was still a little bit of an inkling of faith in the legal system. I don't know if justice system is the proper term to be used. But when we can use excuses in today's society as an engine revving, a vehicle driving into my yard, someone hopping on my quad, to chasing them down and smashing their windows, kicking their taillights out, shooting them, and we're in a very troubled place. In this area, there's been a lot of animosity, a lot of racism for many, many years, many generations. That's not strange to us. You have 8 men that were hung here in the late 1800s. Why? Because they're trying to protect and feed their families. We have one of the chiefs, Poundmaker, that's being exonerated. Why? Because they understand now that they're trying to protect and feed their families, not criminals. But it's the non-First Nations narrative often that wins. And that's got to change.
And now's the day. Now's the time to flip the book to a new chapter and embrace the rage that is evident all across Canada today. To feel it fully. No time to avoid it and oppress it. Embrace it and welcome it and use it to fuel our decolonization. Use it to fuel the stories you're going to tell your children of the change that needs to happen.
Less than 24 hours after the verdict, a meeting is arranged between Saskatchewan's newly appointed premier and the family.
I would like to sit aside. Alvin, if that's
I would like to take the opportunity to have more of a conversation, if you will, with Colton's family on on anything of your choice. Really, if that's sharing some stories or if that's your advice on some of the things that you could advise us on. I think all of us in the room, maybe some have heard it already, on where things need to change or improve.
We have, a 100-year-old judicial system. It's got some great things in it, but it's also got some huge shortcomings, especially when we deal with First Nations.
When my brother was shot on August 9th, I was dancing at a powwow at Dakota Dunes. And my cousin comes up to me before I danced with tears in her eyes, and she said that Coco had died and she didn't know how. She just got a call that we all have to go home. So on the drive home back to Red Pheasant, I go on Facebook to check in on my cousins because they're calling me and trying to message me and make sure that I knew and I was aware. And the first thing I saw was, natives were stealing and one had gotten shot and got what he deserved. He shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have been stealing. Instantly, he was under attack. And not just him, but Indigenous people were under attack. I was under attack. All these leaders were under attack. Anyone with brown skin was under attack. And that was the day that my brother died. And as the investigation went on, to hear that, at the preliminary, to hear that officers who've only been on the force for a couple of years are the ones who handled the evidence, that the lack of resources that were put towards this investigation, how it was treated so neglectfully, how Colton laid out in the rain, how he was not covered, that vehicle was not covered, evidence was washed away. My brother laid out in the rain while his blood was being washed away. And this is the evidence that's presented in court on his behalf. That's what the jury had to use to make a decision because it was shitty evidence to begin with. And I couldn't say that. I couldn't say that to the public, that this is what my family is dealing with, because I wanted to give the system a chance. So hi, thank you again. And I love each and every one of you, and I just wish many blessings for your home and your families.
Two days after the verdict, the family gets on a plane to Ottawa. They want Colton's death to mean something and for the system to be held to account for how it failed them. Their first meetings are with Carolyn Bennett, Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, and Jane Philpott, Minister of Indigenous Services. Everyone, including the media, wants to hear what Colton's family has to say.
Indigenous jury member, they would have been able to understand probably more upon the youth experiences of the RCMP, the trauma, treaty.
Hi, Terry. Take a seat over here. Thanks for coming in. So this is taking up a lot of our show today. We've got lawyers coming in and MPs coming in to discuss it. So this is where we do the headlines, and then we introduce you, and then we have 7 or 8 minutes, and it disappears just like that. Okay. So make your points.
All right, 10 seconds, stand by.
I'm Terry Malewski, and today on Power and Politics. Seeking answers, Colton Bushie's family is in Ottawa to press politicians for change. They say the system failed him after a jury delivered a not guilty verdict in the young Indigenous man's death. What message are they bringing to Parliament Hill?
We're not here because only of the verdict. The injustices started at the beginning of this case, and they culminated with the verdict. The verdict's only a small part of this.
Do you expect the system to change as a result of your meetings here? Are you optimistic about that?
Well, that's why we're here. My family and I were here to share the hardships, the racism, and the discrimination that we felt and experienced all throughout the process. And we're hoping that by vocalizing and sharing what we've been through, that it doesn't fall on deaf ears.
And I know this has been very short, but I'm grateful for you both coming in very much. Thanks to Chris Murphy and Jade Tutusis. Thank you both.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Good job, kid.
You too. Am I done for today?
You're done.
As Minister of Public Safety, Ralph Goodale is ultimately responsible for the RCMP. Jody Wilson-Raybould is the first ever Indigenous Justice Minister. The family lays the truth of the RCMP's actions on Goodale's plate. They tell Wilson-Raybould about the range of racism they've experienced within the legal system.
Minister, are you pleased with today's meeting?
These are systemic issues that are going to take all of us to resolve. So we talked about that.
And is one of those preemptory challenges? Are you looking at maybe?
We're looking at preemptory challenges. Thank you.
Dear Baby Baptiste Tansek, I am 13 years old and in grade 8. I go to Payasua Wasa School in Thunderchild. I am so sorry for your loss. I know how it feels to lose someone so close. What I did to heal, I smudged with sage and sweetgrass, and I went to a sweat. Just think about all the good memories of your son. He will always be in your mind and heart. Hi, hi. Justice for Colton.
Fills my heart with hope, which I lost and gave up. But then every time I give up and I give up hope, and this happens.
I woke up in the middle of the night and I'm concluding my statement with, we, Indigenous people of Canada, deserve better. Yeah, it's kind of like the whole country's undergoing grief.
It's an honor to meet you.
Oh, honor to meet you as well. You've done so well, my dear, standing up and so strong.
Prime Minister's announcement today is going to include a commitment to look at changing the criminal code to address the issue of jury selection, and that we'll get more details next week. So one way or the other, we're going to change the law.
This is one story that's now coming to light, but this has happened to so many people before and is maybe happening right now and we don't know about it. If we want to rely on, Georgina was saying, if we want to rely on the RCMP, but they're treating the family of someone that's been killed as if they're suspect somehow. Right? That perpetuates, that continues this story that there's something wrong with Indigenous people.
After all this is done, has been said and done, I thought we would move forward in our lives and start healing, but we haven't had that opportunity to heal at all. I come from grassroots level, and you know, I got nothing. Yeah.
Before we go in there, then exactly what are me and Jay doing wrong?
Yeah. Nothing.
Well, I thought we were speaking from the heart, and we were all on the same page, Al.
Okay.
Okay, so don't stress us out.
We're all from home. We're all here for a reason. Keep that reason in front, put ourselves behind. Okay? I love you guys. Everyone be strong and be solid together here as we go in there. We're here to send a message for our people. For Colton. That's number one. Okay?
Give me that button.
Debbie, why don't you come sit beside me? Want to sit here?
Sure.
Okay. Whatever, have a seat, wherever. Thank you so much for coming in. I know you've had some busy days of meetings. Let me just say off the top that, like I said on Friday and on Saturday, our heart goes out to you, to your family, to the whole community. This is a time for reflection on how we keep coming to this point as a country and how we can make sure that no families ever suffer again the way you guys are having to suffer this week.
That's the message I want to get across. It's a constant nightmare. And I have to go through this life without my son.
Our cameras have to leave after a few minutes, but I'm allowed to stay. Trudeau seems willing to listen, but doesn't commit to doing anything concrete.
We don't just speak for my brother Colton. We represent all those who have also went through the process and received no justice and face all the systemic discrimination that we've endured. We stand here for them, and that's what Justice for Colton is about.
Thank you. Can I ask, some people are interpreting the fact that you've met with the Prime Minister and several cabinet ministers as the government taking sides in this court case, and I wonder how you feel about that.
So it's a human issue. It's an issue of Canadian justice and about the inclusion of Indigenous people within the Canadian justice system. So it really is an issue for all of Canadians.
The family's last meeting is with representatives from the Conservative Party. Despite being from Saskatchewan, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer declines to attend the meeting.
It's come a long way. We got a lot more to come. We realize that our education rates are certainly not where we need them. But once we get there, the prosperity, we want to share the economic.
And it's not just Indigenous youth who need educating. It's your people who need educating about the true history of Saskatchewan. The world is watching your constituency to see what you're going to do and what the community leaders are going to, what the Saskatchewan leaders are going to do in response to this. People are talking about using vigilante justice to protect their property, and that all comes from the stereotypes that we see in this case. You know, this case was treated more like a theft than it was a murder. And there were stereotypes of the thieving Indian, the drunken Indian, and we've seen that all throughout this trial. And that, you know, it all resulted in a not guilty verdict, right? And we're not here to talk about an appeal. You know, we'll let the province go through that process. But we'd like to hear from you about how you're going to deal with those stereotypes that this family has faced in our province.
The only way we can move forward from these types of situations or any type of situation is by having conversation, right? And really lending a hand out to one another. That's the only way that we're going to reach healing and reconciliation and relationship with people, right? Because I think that's ultimately the end goal. So we can live in unity and peace, right? So we can have relationship with everybody. To be frank and honest, I don't have an answer. I don't know what the answer is right now.
This racism needs to stop, And you could probably start with those farmers with firearms that say nothing but racial discrimination on that page. We don't have a page like that. We respect human life.
They've lost a loved one, and they are getting hate mail. And that's, you know, I mean, let's just say that's not right. I mean, that's a pretty easy thing to say. That's not right for these people to get hate mail.
We talk about unity, we talk about reconciliation. What are you going to do? As human beings, as people within your position even, what is your answer to this going on in Saskatchewan?
The federal government introduces a bill that removes peremptory challenges from jury selection. Still, Colton's supporters across the country want more done to address the structural racism in the legal system. A month after the verdict, Saskatchewan's Justice Department declines to appeal Stanley's acquittal. Colton's family is devastated. The province will go on to strengthen trespass laws. The online comments continue to pour in, including one from a currently serving RCMP officer. The RCMP announces they will hold a series of town hall meetings to discuss rural crime. One will be held in the area Gerald Stanley is from. I decide to attend, along with local media.
Drunk to the point of mental incapacity, armed, meth heads. I may come into my yard or come walking out of the house whilst this is going on, and I'm being told just let it happen, but I don't know that they won't do something stupid first.
It doesn't matter if you're red, white, blue, green. Who cares what color you are? It's not a race issue. It's a criminal against a victim, and we're victims and we can't do anything about it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, and
You know what? I'll spell it out right now, right here and here. Probably 80% of us farmers here will do exactly what Gerald Stanley did.
okay, well,
You know?
and
That's how it's gotta be. I gotta protect my stuff no matter what.
okay, defensive property and defensive person are two different things entirely. We're never going to get rid of property crime. Never. There are things that drive property crime, okay? A large part of it is drugs, okay? It is part of it, okay? It's a reality. I'm speaking from experience.
I have a ranch, and I got to look after it. And then, in my thinking, I'm not going to shoot somebody for a quad or an expensive machine. If I do that, I got to live with that. It's all about education. I know that if a guy is doing that, hey, I'm in a rough situation, but that's the way it is.
I wonder if there's an unspoken fear of Indigenous men that permeates these town halls. It makes me worry about how my son and nephew will be seen when they're older. I decide to find the young man who was the first Indigenous person to be dismissed from the jury pool.
As soon as I looked at the attorneys, I knew what I was to them. To the defendants, I was something that shouldn't be there. But as soon as I saw their eyes, they turned their heads, they looked at me, they immediately went back to their papers and wrote something down. And immediately I knew I wasn't going to make it. And a part of me was relieved, and a part of me was a little mixed, because in all honesty, I would have given a fair verdict, to not be biased, because that's something I try to stand by, is to not be biased in certain areas, especially with law in general.
If you got called for another jury, would you serve?
Yeah, it's just my duty as a citizen. But once again, I might I might be, I wouldn't say objectified, but I just might be seen as another Native.
The family is unhappy. They feel the provincial and federal governments aren't responding to their push for a structural overhaul of the legal system. Because treaties are international covenants, the family decides to advocate at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. Jade is chosen as the spokesperson.
I've been wearing ribbon skirts to all the proceedings and that, and it's just something that's reemerged over the past few years within a lot of Indigenous nations, because I find that they're a strong representation of being a Nehiyaw Esqueo, of being a Cree woman. So when I wear them, they make me feel stronger, more confident, braver. They just make me proud, make me feel better. When I was reading it, I was like, am I saying it too fast? Am I saying it too slow? And then, yeah, we only timed it once. And they're like, it's perfect. It's right on time. We only went through it once. So.
The Federation of Saskatchewan Indigenous Nations has given the family their seat, but Jade still has to make it on the speakers list. The session has a strict closing time of 6 p.m.
Dispossessions and violence.
J'invite la rapporteuse spéciale sur les droits des peuples autochtones, Madame Victoria Tauli Corpus, à prendre la parole.
Madam Chairperson of the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, distinguished members of the Permanent Forum.
Under Article 11 of UNDRIP, we have the right to maintain, protect, and develop past, present, and future manifestations of cultures, such as archaeological and historical sites. This goal was in part realized by the Bears Ears National Monument.
It's now the afternoon, and Jade is still not on the list.
The hamaille de leur présence cet après-midi.
I think if somebody is accused of
6 o'clock has arrived, and time has run out.
This demonstration of support inspires me to remain strong and to further pursue my commitment to the promotion and protection of Indigenous people's rights.
Vous remercie. Donc, je fais une exception à la procédure. J'avais déjà annoncé la clôture, mais je me suis rendu compte que dans la salle, il y a une situation spéciale qui mérite notre attention. Donc, je vais passer la parole à la famille de Boushie pour s'exprimer. Merci.
I am the sister of the late Colton Bushie, a 22-year-old Nehiyaw Napio from the Red Pheasant First Nation, a Cree community in the state of Canada. Colton and his Indigenous friends drove onto a settler farm one afternoon in August 2016, where he was shot in the back of the head by a non-Indigenous farmer named Gerald Stanley. An all-white jury acquitted Gerald Stanley of all charges. Colton was the baby boy of the family. Colton had a promising future with a strong work ethic. He had just received his forest fighter certificate. He was a traditional helper trained with ceremonial protocol and was always helping his people. Colton was not a thief. He was a kind and generous young man. I recommend that the Special Rapporteur and the expert mechanism undertake a study on the systemic racism and discrimination against Indigenous people within the judicial and legal systems in Canada. This study must produce recommendations to ensure the protection of Indigenous families who utilize the judicial and the legal systems. This will advance our calls on the Canadian government to establish a royal commission on the elimination of racism in the justice system. Only a royal commission has the authority to compel all involved in this miscarriage of justice.
I felt heavy and I felt tired. And it crushed me that I didn't want to be at a powwow. And I didn't feel the urge to put on my moccasins. And I didn't have that passion in me to want to dance. And when I do dance, it'll be not because I feel like I have to, but it'll be because I want to. And it'll come from a good place. Because we're taught that we don't dance for ourselves, we dance for others. We dance for those who are unable to dance.
There. You know, Jade, you've done a very good job representing our people. Very proud of you. And oftentimes that's what happens is when something negative happens, that's when we pull together and we pick ourselves up as Indian people and try and move forward. And we'll continue to do that. And I want to acknowledge the family for doing that for all of us. They've taught us all a very valuable lesson. That yes, we make some steps forward, maybe 10 steps back, but we still got to walk together and take care of one another and love each other. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the time.
I grew up on a farm in southern Saskatchewan until I was 11. My adoptive parents now live on the family homestead that was settled by my great-grandparents.
Hi.
You made it.
You made it. Good, good, good. Yeah. Hey, Quana.
Hi.
Hey, how are ya?
Good.
Good, you're getting taller.
Yeah.
Who's that, Bob? Who's that? You're bad. Joe, that's Quana.
Hi, Mom. Hey, this is a big man.
I know. Quana's jealous.
He's jealous.
Yeah. He thinks he's ready for the bigger bike, so we'll get him one.
My birth dad met my adoptive parents years ago, but it's his first time visiting the farm.
A lot of people hold rifles, too close like this. Yeah. And then you can't really balance, but you hold it further up, you have more steady control. Okay, maybe we'll go through the rules of how to handle a rifle before we let you take some shots. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Rule number 1, always assume the rifle is loaded. Always.
Okay.
Always assume it's loaded. Number 2, always point this away from people or animals or buildings or anything you don't want to shoot. Now, this gun has got a safety on the trigger here. Mm-hmm. When you push this forward, the safety is off.
Oh, wow. That sounds pretty good.
That sounded good.
Yeah.
He's just about at the bullseye. He's got one here and one just below it.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, is that good shooting or what? That's 25 yards with a pellet gun in the wind.
Just waiting for the wind to go.
I remember when I was about Quanah's age that you, in your bottom drawer of your desk, you had some stones. And I think you said you got some of them down south on that one quarter.
Yep.
Yeah.
I broke up some new prairie there. I picked all the stones by hand, and I came across these, so I saved them. And now they go to you. No. But hopefully you'll find out, Tasha.
Yeah.
This is just a piece of old tree or something, I think.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
What does it smell like?
How a rock would usually smell.
But I was thinking back when I broke that prairie down south, I could see where there was teepee rings, stones for teepee rings in 2 or 3 places down there. That's when I kind of thought, you know, maybe I shouldn't be breaking this up. But I went ahead and done it. Grew wheat.
It's a hard time right now, Grandpa. There's lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, it's a troubled world.
And that's why I decided to do the film, because I knew, though, the days following when Colton was shot, that things were going to change. I don't want him to be looked at like he's not as important. And I'm scared because I know there's people out there that's how they feel.
I think you're always going to find that some people are going to be racist. Think they're better than the next guy. It's always been that way.
Well, and I think too it's because a lot of it's over property, you know? So it's not like somebody's life was in danger, you know? It's over stuff.
Yeah, there's always 2 sides to that story, though, Tasha. What was the reason they were there?
Well,
and you have something of your own you worked hard to get. How do you protect it?
Not by shooting someone. Not by shooting someone.
No, I agree with you 100%, but what's the answer?
I just want people to understand each other better.
That's what needs to happen. It will happen, I think. It'll take a long time, though. I think it'll take a long time.
Juana wants to smudge. Do you want to smudge, Grandpa?
So what's this supposed to do?
This just helps Clean and clear?
No, I see.
Any negative things or?
Yeah, and just hold on to your balloon. Yeah. So if you want to walk up, you can come up and grab a balloon, just like Lex did. Yeah. Well,
I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. Colton would have been 25. This is his favorite holiday, so everybody make some wishes on your balloon when you send it up to your loved ones. Let Colton know that he isn't forgotten. And today was his day. So thank you for all coming. Hi, hi.
Happy
birthday,
Happy
Coco.
birthday!
1, 2, 3.
Love you!
Oh, go, go! That looks cool. Yeah.
I really wish you guys had met Colton. I wish you had met Coco. I wish you got to see his smile in person and feel his energy and hear his laugh and see his bashfulness. I wish you had all had the opportunity to meet him and know more than what happened to him and what happened to my family, and know more about just the memories we share, but to actually know him. I wish that for you, and I wish that for Kwana. You guys would have really liked him.
Oh, I pray for you at night as I sing and hold you tight. Pray that you will grow into a man to hold on to, and no matter paths unknown, you'll find shelter from the storm. I pray that you will always have a home. Oh, I pray for you at night as I sing and hold you tight. Pray that you will grow into a man to hold on to, and no matter shelter from the storm. I pray that you will always have a home. Hold on to your courage, hold on to your pride, hold on to the fire burning deep inside. Hold on to your kindness, fill your heart with light. Hold on to the river, let it flow with might. Pray that you will grow into a man to hold on to, and no matter paths unknown, you'll find shelter from the storm. I pray that you will always have a home. Oh, I